You know how most people can't train their dogs to not drag their ass across the floor? How are they gonna train their pet Hitmonlee to not high jump kick randos that step foot in their house? The average person spends like at least 2 hours in deep negotiations with their dog to get him to drop a lid. How are you gonna hack training your Snorlax to not consume you? And that tells me a lot. That tells me that most people wouldn't even get close to evolution. But it's as easy as slapping on that experience share and then slapping up the Elite Four till you've got your evolution, right? Nah. Not today. Not any day, really. Because really, are you gonna be in that 1% who could take on the Elite Four in the first place? You know, the Pokemon battling equivalent of you taking on 4 consecutive fights with 4 Francis and Ganus. And second of all, evolution's long. It's just... Let's say you're a bit heavy on the piss last night. You show up to the professor's lab late, your first day of training. And not like Ash Ketchum late, more like Axl Rose late. Or Jesus 2. You're showing up to the professor's place like a chicken shop at 4:30 in the morning. All they got left on the menu are the veggie burgers. Sorry boss, no more Squirtle, only Onyx. Wait, Onyx? My starter Pokemon is... Oak, you're dicking me here. You're having a bit of a goof and a gaff here, Oak, aren't you? Onyx. That's hard mode. That's taking the... No, you know, I can do this. I'll just train hard. Pump a bit of that iron. And one day, I'll forge myself some piping hot steel. Well, in that situation, if that helps you sleep at night, you can keep telling yourself that, but while you're at it, you can keep dreaming too, because your veggie patty's gotta live for 100 years for it to evolve into that beefy loaded box with a Rio on the side. And that's assuming Onyx makes it to the big 100 in the first place, because these things are weak. Like, apple sour's weak. You wouldn't even have Onyx in the first place, you wouldn't even been late to Professor Oak if you were on these. You'd think it's somewhat strong, being a Titanoboa made of rock, but really it's the Pokemon equivalent of that kid in the playground who keeps getting told off for eating the gravel. Realistically, the only way you're battling with a Steelix is vicariously through your great-grandkids. Better make note of that one in your will. If you wanted a Slowpoke to evolve, it's a little bit more complicated than level 37 or handing it a rock and chucking him over your neighbor's fence. If you were to actually raise one, you'd have to take a nice long fishing trip with Slowpoke and hope that a Shelder bites its tail or head. You know, if you'd rather it not eat the gravel in your garden with that Onyx you're saving for your kid's pension. So the same applies for Slowking as well, I'd assume. I couldn't imagine trying to get a Shelder to conveniently bite the head. It's not only getting it to evolve, but if that Shelder decides to bail, they both go back to their original forms. You found Shelder-infested waters, you finally got that bite. Your evolution could get done in on the ride home from a speed bump. Generation 2 introduced many concepts, but there's this little concept they introduced known as nights and day, where previously the Pokemon world was stuck in perpetual midday hell, where TVs played nothing but constant repeats of the Jeremy Kyle show and Super Duper Sumos. But since that hell subsided, Eevee got 2 new forms where you'd have to time things just right to get whichever of the 2 you wanted. Night and day, there's quite a nice gap in time. That's not really an issue. It's not like you'd have to evolve it within, like an hour. You know, an hour. And in comes Alola. Now, Eevee didn't exactly get the evening form we've all been clamoring for just yet. Relax. Lycanroc, on the other hand, gets a dusk form. And the only real guaranteed way to get the dusk form is to ensure that it evolves within 5 to 6 in the evening. In the Alola region, anyway. But, sods kids, that ain't real. You know, while we're at it, neither's Axl Rose. So more accurately, whenever the hell dusk decides it wants to whack itself out since it changes within the time of the year. So pretty much, you'd have to exclusively train at whatever time dusk happens where you live to avoid the risk of a botched evolution. Because if there's any slight miscalculation, you've got yourself a midday or midnight Lycanroc, and you don't want any of that. You want that pristine dusk form with them tough claws. None of them filthy commons. Get them out of my sight, especially midnight. Get out of here, give you a head start. You're gonna need it with that speed, boy. Just like in the games, trading to evolve a Pokemon, it's really inconvenient. They're really not feeling feeling the socializing thing, so I'd just rather go ahead, just move past it, and get my Machamp right away. But sadly, it doesn't work out that way. Realistically, all evolutions involving trading would be annoying. Having to transfer ownership of your pet to someone else, and hope they consent to hand it back over, things get a little ugly in that dispute. What are you gonna do, huh? They got the Machamp now, so unless you want to get Goroed, you're gonna take that bait level 3 Pidgey you traded you, and you're gonna smile.
Or Machamp over here is gonna have to learn Brick Break for those kneecaps as well.
But there's one that seems to be the most inconvenient. Carablast and Shelmet have to be traded with each other specifically to evolve, and that's just specific enough to be that's really annoying to go out of your way for. You have to find adverts on Craigslist or somewhere looking for Shelmet to trade. Promise to trade back. Like, you get those ads from people that will say, "We'll do anything for you for an entire day." Wink. He's showing up in a ski mask, he's got a level whip, man has a utility belt armed with enough horse tranquilizer to knock out Godzilla. And you're there like, glad you've arrived. Hope you've charged your 3DS. my Pokédex has been lacking an Excalibur for weeks now. Right this way. While I'm on trading, there's another one you'd eventually have to trade once you get it to its second form. But the thing is, you're gonna have to bust your ass to get a Cadabra though. Abra needs to sleep for 18 hours a day. None of this opening the curtains telling him to get out of bed, the lazy prick. It needs to, or else it loses its ability to use telekinetic powers. And I don't know if you've noticed, it's kind of the kid's gimmick. No psychic powers, he's just a vegan matchup. And on top of that, if it senses danger, it just pisses off into thin air. So good luck getting some good training out of the 6 hours you have him out of the bed for, 5 of which you're probably spending trying to find which hospital he spawned at, or whatever random area it decides to end up in.
Your Abra's gone, mate. Dan local. Nah, no training today, mate. Nah.
And speaking of going down local, your Abra likely teleported straight where the alpha is, where the banter is, right next to my man, Cadabra, necking his room temp Carlins after a good scrap against Pangoro for nicking his lighter. And can anyone answer me this? Why would anyone ever want to evolve this genetic crap hammer in the first place? The answer is beyond even Alakazam and his 5,000 IQ big brain. But if you're that desperate to ruin such a prime specimen, you've got to take a pilgrimage to some icy mountain, likely halfway across the world from where you're living right now, and hope that they've got a heavy bag hefty enough to Rocky montage its way to this crabomination. Now obviously, if you were to train a Pokemon yourself, levels wouldn't be a thing. You would just have a Pokemon, there'd be a bar next to it, like there are in the games. But it does give you a good estimate of the amount of training you'd have to put into something to have it evolve fully. Like, training a Caterpie, it's obviously easier than training a literal bomb. But the most difficult Pokemon to get based on raw experience and training you put it through alone is Hydreigon. In-game, you need to grind Dino to level 64, the highest level requirement in all of the games this far. If you were to actually raise one to that point, that'd be insane.
64 levels, Jeremy. 4. That's insane.
Like, Elite 4 level training. Because who really manages to train Pokemon to the equivalent of level 64 and up? Like, who really? Worldwide mob bosses? No, not really. Elite 4? Some of them do. Child prodigies. Yeah, nah, they get it done. But that's only because I'm playing as them. That massive complaint you always see about Generation 1. It's always just how lazy the evolutions were at times. And they kind of have a point. Hey boss, we got a Diglett. Triple him. Hey boss, we got a Voltorb. Flip him over, give him the Rock's eyebrows. Hey boss, we got a Doduo. Too easy. Don't 3-0. All this other bollocks is well worth complaining about over Muck just being a naughty Grimer. In many cases, it just looks like they fused the original design, and in some cases, that's exactly what you'd need to do. Because with Magneton, its design isn't just 3 Magnemites getting together, it literally is 3 Magnemites fusing together, and this sounds like a mess. Magno might give that one a miss. Yeah, that showed him. First, you have to go through the effort of finding 2 other Magnemites to fuse with, but even then, you could train your Magnemite really well and end up fusing it with one that's not pulling its weight, so you end up with a bit of a clapped fusion. So what? You train 3 Magnemites to make sure the fusion's on point. Oh, and training them separately also so they don't get any funny ideas now fusing on me. I then found out, in some cases, single Magnemites can evolve without linking to the others. But how exactly does it go from Magneton to Magnezone? There's no fusion involved, but you do have to go out of your way to find an area with a magnetic field strong enough for Magneton to evolve in the first place. In the games, you'd have to trek to places like Mount Coronet, Blush Mountain, Chargestone Cave, power plants, and just general areas around it. So really, this entire evolution line, it's a goddamn mess to get your way through. You'd need 3 Magnemites to fuse, or you get a beefy one that's keen and you get that magnet on the weights and evolve it the hard way. And then you better hope you're in reach of a power plant, or mountain, that produces the right amount of magnetism for it to get to stage 3. To get yourself a Porygon to begin with, you'd have to be an insanely good coder, or have an insanely bad gambling problem. Then you've got to be so IT proficient that you develop it to feel emotions with Porygon 2. You sick bastard. And then you've got to be so IT proficient that you missed out 1 backslash in the code and you go and botch it with Porygon Z. If you want to evolve Porygon, you're gonna have to get on the weights. And by weights, I mean Code Academy. Gotta pay for the big boy lessons too. Need more than CSS to make your Porygon emote. You see, Porygon doesn't evolve from training. It evolves from added software to a point where it becomes unstable. Or if you want to go by what the games do, give him that upgrade, slap him on a USB stick and chuck him over your neighbor's fence as well. I thought Magneton would take a fair amount of pissing around to fuse, but then I remembered Generation 3's Robot Boy line, and Beldum is actually taking the piss to evolve. It has latched onto me, and I'm bone dry. Or should I say, Beldums are taking the piss. Oh yeah, that's right, all 4 of you 200-pound weapons they keep in the back of Ann Summers. Because not only do you need to train 2 Beldums and have them fuse into Metang, you have to do that again, and then fuse the 2 Metangs to finally get Big Gross, and its big 4 brains. Typically, you're only going to find any of this evolution line in rough terrain areas. If you're lucky, you may find a Beldum attached to a cliff sleeping, but they are a rare breed, and they're trickier to catch than a full McDonald's cup being pelted at you. Even its mega form is the combination of Metagross, Metang, and 2 more Beldums. You summon the mega form up, and the nearest Metang and Beldums fly across the region like they're being summoned by Thor. And then do they just, like, all awkwardly leave once the battle's done? Alright, it's been a pleasure fusing with yous. I've got to get back to my cliff. But to even get the man himself in the first place, you've got to train 4 incredibly rare and difficult to raise Pokemon, and then chuck them together like a pair of oids, and hope that you make the oids noise.